Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a really fascinating one for you today. We're going to dive right into the wild experiences of Michalowicz to look at the massive difference between driving top-line revenue and, well, actually having cash in the bank. Because, let's be honest, have you ever wondered how entrepreneurs can just grind relentlessly, day in and day out, pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into growing this massive business, yet somehow they still find themselves living paycheck to paycheck? It's a totally baffling paradox, isn't it?
I mean, think about it. How does the guy who literally wrote the book on business frugality, I'm talking about a book called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, how does he end up completely broke and bleeding money? Well, Mike fell victim to his own ego. After building and selling 2 successful companies, he kind of started believing his own hype. He genuinely thought he possessed this flawless, natural aptitude for business. And that right there, that led to massive identity spending. He wasn't spending money because it made smart business sense anymore. He was spending to fuel this identity of a highly successful, wealthy business guru.
Just to give you an idea of the sheer scale of the disconnect here, after receiving a massive windfall of $388,000 from selling a business, what do you think he did? He went out and bought a Dodge Viper, the single most expensive Land Rover on the lot for his wife, a tricked-out BMW, and he even rented a remote Hawaiian island house just to see how the other half lives. He developed what we can call a King Midas complex. He figured he'd use whatever money he had left to invest in a dozen failing startups, just naturally assuming his golden touch would save them. But as he kept writing check after check to cover their mounting bills, he had this horrifying realization. He wasn't an angel investor at all. He was actually the angel of death.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Making money and keeping money, those are 2 completely different skill sets. As the source material points out, bringing in millions of dollars in income does not automatically translate into accumulating actual wealth. We get so obsessed with top-line revenue, just growing sales and getting bigger, that it creates this really dangerous illusion of business health. You might look incredibly successful from the outside, but on the inside, your business might literally be a house of cards.
All right, let's move into part 1, the piggy bank wake-up.
Picture this. It's February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2008. Mike gets a phone call from his accountant. At this moment, Mike has exactly $10,000 to his name. That's it. But his accountant hits him with some brutal news. He owes $28,000 in taxes, plus another $2,000 just to cover the accountant's fee. You don't have to be a math genius to see that just doesn't work. The millions, gone. The investment money, completely gone. And to make matters worse, he had 0 incoming revenue. He had lost absolutely every penny of his hard-earned fortune, and suddenly he had no clue how he was going to provide for his family.
That evening, they sit down for a family Valentine's Day dinner, and the shame just became entirely too much for him to bear. Mike actually broke down crying right at the table, confessing to his family that he had lost everything. His 9-year-old daughter, Adela, jumped up and ran out of the room, but about 2 agonizing minutes later, she comes back, and she's carrying her own heavily taped-up piggy bank. She slides it across the table to him and says, "Daddy, we're gonna make it." Man, what a gut-wrenching, profoundly humbling moment.
But here's the thing. That incredibly painful experience birthed a profound realization. Why a piggy bank? Because in that exact moment, Mike realized his 9-year-old daughter had mastered a core financial truth that he, the supposed expert, had missed for a decade. The secret to keeping money isn't some complicated financial engineering. It's literally what a piggy bank does. You save your money, and you intentionally block access to it so that it doesn't get stolen by you.
Which brings us to part 2, the psychology of hiding. Let's talk about the traps we fall into, starting with the recency effect. This is just our human tendency to place a massive, disproportionate weight on whatever just happened. In business, this shows up as bank balance accounting. You know the drill. You log into your bank app, see a bunch of cash, feel amazing, and immediately start spending it to pay bills or buy equipment. But if that balance is 0, you panic and scramble to sell literally anything you can. This recency effect turns you into a completely reactionary machine, running your business entirely on panic rather than a solid financial strategy.
And when you manage your business just based on whatever cash happens to be sitting right in front of you, you kick off this really dangerous cycle. Basically, your expenses will always organically rise to consume whatever new income you bring in. Have a huge month? Great, you spend big. But when sales inevitably take a dip, those new inflated expenses, yeah, they stick around, causing massive losses. It keeps true profitability perpetually out of reach and traps you right back on that check-to-check roller coaster.
This whole mess creates what is known as the survival trap. When that bank account reads 0,
We do whatever it takes to just survive the day. We take money from bad clients. We take on terrible headache-inducing projects. We tell ourselves we just need to, work harder. But here's the reality check. This relentless, panicked hustle is often just a huge form of self-deception. Working harder without a system is simply a way of hiding from the underlying financial disease in your business. Sure, it might get you out of today's immediate crisis, but it pulls you completely off course from your actual long-term vision.
So, how do we fix this? That's part 3, designing for our weakness. For years, everyone has told us we just need more willpower, right? We just need to somehow magically change our bad spending habits. But let's be real. Trying to permanently change ingrained human nature is nearly impossible. Willpower always fades. What we actually need is environment design. If we change the structure around our habits, we can start leveraging our natural behaviors instead of constantly fighting them.
Mike actually realized this while he was watching a late-night fitness infomercial right after his financial collapse. The fitness expert on TV shared this brilliant concept, the small plates analogy. Look, human beings are deeply conditioned to eat everything on our plate. Trying to force yourself to change that habit, it's agonizing. But if you simply shrink the physical size of the plate, you naturally dish out smaller portions. You automatically consume fewer calories, but you still get the psychological satisfaction of cleaning your plate. It's a structural fix. It completely bypasses the need for massive willpower.
And this leads to a rule you definitely want to remember. The strongest systems assume their creator will be weak later. Just like food on a giant plate, if all your business revenue is just sitting there in one massive operating account, your natural human behavior is going to dictate that you consume every last scrap of it to run your business. To survive, you literally have to restrict your own access to the cash. You have to create a system that hides the money from yourself.
Let's wrap this up with part 4. Profit is not leftovers. This requires us to fundamentally shift how we look at basic business math. Traditional accounting, the standard GAAP method, tells us that sales minus expenses equals profit. That setup automatically makes profit an afterthought. It's just whatever happens to be left over at the end of the day. But the profit-first method, it flips the whole equation on its head. Sales minus profit equals expenses. You take your profit right off the top, first thing, and you set it aside on a completely separate small plate. Only then do you run your business purely on the expenses that actually remain. So, why is flipping that equation so necessary? Well, do you really want to treat your profitability like leftovers, knowing you might only find scraps? Because when you leave profit for last, human nature pretty much guarantees there will be nothing left. Leftovers are literally always scraps. If you want a healthy share, you have to carve it out and secure it right up front, way before your natural tendency to consume takes over.
To actually make this a reality, the sources suggest getting into a specific rhythm, what they call the 10-25 rhythm. It basically works like a heartbeat for your business, and honestly, it is the key to real financial freedom. Instead of reacting every single day to whatever your bank balance says, you deposit your revenue and then, only on the 10th and 25th of the month, do you sit down and distribute that cash into your smaller plates, your profit, your taxes, your own pay. Then and only then do you pay your bills using only what's left in the operating account. Oh, and here's the golden rule. Never, ever plow back that profit to cover expenses. That profit is your reward. Putting it back just feeds the cash-eating monster.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, from the dangers of the Midas touch and the incredible lesson from a child's piggy bank, all the way to how environment design can quite literally save us from our own worst habits. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about. Are you willing to keep treating your financial lifeblood like scraps? It's time to stop hiding, stop relying on fleeting willpower, and start designing a system where your business actually serves you.